Hello, everybody, and welcome back to SPL Waiting Room. It feels like it's been too long, only one bye week, but it feels like it's been an eternity, in large part because a lot has happened since the last time we had a waiting room. Big roster changes happening in the SPL. And they're kind of complicated, but they mostly revolve around E-United and around Renegades. Let's keep it simple real quick. Variety goes from E-United and replaces Solo Patrol on Renegades. That one's simple. E-United, a lot of pickups and some role swaps, and we figured a visual aid might be more helpful. Here's the easy way to put it. Snoopy out from support, back into ADC. Guy J goes to the bench. And not Gino, well, I guess I should say Gino, but his IGN is not Gino. And Baskin join, Gino in support, Baskin in the solo lane to replace Variety. So this is your new look, E-United. And the talk of the SPL has really been how much better is this team going to be? They're 0-10 right now, so they've got some room to grow, to say the very least. But I'm seeing a lot of talk saying they don't think E-United got that much better. Are you crazy? This team just got way better. Every single move was a move up. Now, we'll talk about how much of a move up it'll be with John Finch and Dolson in just a little bit. But I think it's unfair to say anything other than each move was an improvement for E-United, even if it's a small one. And you're going to hear from Hurriwind in just a little bit on why they ended up making this move. I think it makes a ton of sense. I think E-United is going to be a team that people really have to be ready for come the rest of phase number 2. Renegades as well. I think they improve. The question is, which team improved more? And that's the question we're posing to you. There's a poll right now that you can vote in the chat. Which team do you think got better? Well, I guess they both got better. Which team got better by a bigger margin with these moves is the real question to answer here. I'm curious as to what people think. Only one move for the Renegades, and Solar Patrol has been performing on the field okay. We'll also have an interview with Rowe talking about why they decided to make that decision. Here's a hint. It wasn't just the on-the-field stuff as to why they decided to make this move, which is, again, why I think this move makes a ton of sense for the Renegades, even if it might not for your casual SPL fan. Now, I've seen a lot of talk as well about, oh, I'm going to miss Guy J. He deserves a spot. Solar Patrol's one of my favorite players. He deserves a spot. Completely agree on both of those accounts, and I don't think there's any world in which those two don't get shots in the future in the SPL. It's just, right now, these are how the teams decided to make their moves. Like I said, I got a chance to sit down and talk with Hurriwind a little bit earlier on in the week about exactly why they made this massive change. Let's hear from United's captain right now. Hurry, this is not the first time. Here we are again, basically, talking about another swap here for E-United. I know you talked about it a little bit on Twitter, but I think it's good to get a chance to hear it from someone's mouth directly. Talk me through what led to you guys making this change.
So, first and foremost, we're obviously 0-10. It's, as bad can be. We took games off good teams, but ultimately we didn't have any set wins. So that's where the conversation kind of started. And the main thing that we agreed on is that we just really didn't have, much leadership. We didn't always have great early games, but we had plenty enough good early games, good mid games to win games. We just couldn't close our games out. And we agreed that was mostly because of leadership. This is something that everybody agreed on. We just didn't have someone who was great at kind of giving direction in that late portion of the game. I personally find frontline positions to do this the best because they're the ones who kind of set up the fights and engage and set the pace. Now it's not totally on them, but I do think historically, and if you look at all the teams that are doing well right now and have been doing well, that's the case where the frontline players are kind of running the pace of the game after mid-game. Mm-hmm. So we kind of had to make space for that. And the only logical choice that was available that also has the talent and experience in the short amount of time is Baskin. That's kind of funny. He's kind of an assassin for hire at this point. I always joked about it before, and now here I am doing it myself. But it just seemed to be the only logical choice. So it's not really Baskin's way better solo laner than Harry. I think they do different things, and we kind of need one of those things that Baskin does specifically in order to feel like we have a good chance of winning. I've seen some people talk about friends and stuff. didn't really have anything to do with it. It's the same thing with Snoopy. I would have picked Guy like between those two as well if I thought Guy was like the better option in the short run, but I didn't think that. So Scream didn't think that. Cardi didn't think that. I mean, it was close, but I kind of want to like quell those rumors a bit now. It's kind of frustrating seeing people think it's just about like friends. Like I want to win. Like I'm 0-10. Like that's the reason we're changing. Like people forget we replaced Yannick earlier in this year, right? Like Yannick, I've known Yannick forever, and that was like a heart-wrenching decision. But we removed him because we thought it was best for like the performance of the team. So I don't want people to get that twisted. It's just kind of what we thought was the best. So yeah, leadership, Baskin was the only option. In order to make space for Baskin in a frontline position, we had to move Harry.
Mm-hmm. That's and so we end up with Gino and Baskin now on the roster. I assume that you guys have been working with them leading up to your games this week. Early reports, how are things feeling? Do you feel like you're already noticing a difference with the way your frontline's planning?
Yeah, just the morale is a lot better. I think the morale's a lot better. I mean, we're performing, like, in my opinion, significantly better immediately as well, which is, like, a good sign. I think that compared to, like, all these other teams who have been playing together for the full year or even longer, I mean, a lot of us have played together before, so it's maybe not fair to say, but, I mean, we're immediately in competition with the best teams that we've been practicing. And we have good games. It feels like all the players are kind of on the same page with how like we want to play the game, which is really good. And we kind of knew that when we were making decisions as well. We kind of expect that to be the case. But the main thing I would say is we're just more productive, like immediately. And part of it is probably like a little bit of a honeymoon thing. But like I said, we've all known each other and played together for a long time. So I don't know how true that's going to be. I just think Baskin is a player that really likes to get involved. Like when he's in SPL, he's really like trying to win the game. He's like talking about stuff outside a game, like, and Harry wasn't exactly that kind of player. Not to like throw him under the bus, like, I wish the best for him, but he just wasn't that kind of player. Baskin is getting involved with our picks and kind of like, especially like he's kind of putting leash on Scream a little bit, like to be funny. It's kind of not a lot of people can do that with Scream, and Scream actually like respects what Baskin has to say like more than the average person. So it's good to try to get Scream on the same page as everyone else as well.
Well, we're excited to see what it turns out to be on the battleground. Can't wait to see your first week in action, and hopefully for United fans, find a dub in Phase 2. Good luck, Harry. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Agro.
So the name of the game, or the name of the change, I guess is a better way to put it, is leadership out of that solo lane. We'll see if that pays dividends for E United in the coming weeks. But right now we've got to talk about how their whole team has changed. And to do that, we've got Dolson and Finch joining us here on the waiting room. And fellas, let's start on the very left side of the map. I basically want to go through each change and get your opinions on how big of a move this really is for United. Let's start with Guy J out, Snoopy in. And Dave, we can start with you. How much of a big deal do you think this is for E United?
I don't think it is a massive, overarching, immediate, massive change where suddenly this long lane is going to start tearing their opponents apart. I do think it swaps Snoopy back into a comfortable position for himself, and comfort is absolutely key, and I like the way Hurriwind kind of worded it. In the short term, I think this is an absolute increase. It's a sad change for me because I really liked watching Guy J improve week after week, but if you want to talk about immediate comfort and sort of tenure at this level in that role, I think Snoopy certainly brings that to the table. So not massive, but I do think winning in the short term will be improved. The likelihood of that will be improved with this change.
Finch, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is easily the smallest change that's been made so far in terms of an improvement. I even might argue that in the short term it might be a bit of a decrease. Snoopy, let's be honest, we all know how good this guy is, but he has not looked good lately in Hunter or in support, right? And I think that we know Snoopy's high end probably a little bit better than what we've seen from Guy, but in the short term, I wonder if there might be just a little bit of Snoopy kind of getting back into the groove. But I think overall, this is obviously good for the team, right? I mean, Snoopy is a part of this squad. He knows these guys really well, and we know that high end for him is strong. When he returns to form, I think this will be a better change, but I worry in these first couple of weeks if maybe they might not have been a little bit better off having Guy over there in that role. But overall, obviously, I like this change.
I think you're right to bring up the experience, Dave. That's got to be the main reason, just from an outside looking in perspective, as why you would take Snoopy over Guy J. But I think Finch bringing up, maybe being a little bit rusty in ADC is a good point. It might take some time for him to get back into it and look comfortable again in his main role. And with him leaving the ADC, that brings us to where he was, which is support. Gino stepping in now to take over that support role in that long lane. Finch, do you think this is a bigger deal?
Yeah, I think this might be the largest increase in terms of that role getting better one-to-one. Hard to say that when Basket's being added to the team, but I don't know, man. I don't think Snoopy really had it for them in that support role, and Gino is someone that I personally have been saying for a long time has been SPL caliber for, 2 years running now down there in the SML, SEC level, and we know that he's got it. I think it's just been a personal thing where he hasn't particularly wanted to come up until now, but certainly had the ability, and now you're adding in someone where support is their main role. That's what they wake up thinking about doing, is playing support better than everybody else at the SPL. And Gino can certainly do that. He can play aggressive if you need to. He can play a more traditional peely support as well. He gives you just about everything that you could ask for out of that role. And Snoopy, I don't think I need to say it has not looked great in this role lately. So Gino, certainly a big improvement for my money.
Dave, do you echo Finch's sentiment there?
Yeah, I do. I think Finch sort of said everything that was on my plate here for this one. Kind of on a whole, though, sad for, this poor United long lane just has not been able to, I think, mesh chemistry-wise. You talk about role swaps and player swaps. From Phase 1 on in here to Phase 2, you hope that this is the change that'll stick for a little bit longer and allow, kind of a full meshing of chemistry between support and Hunter to build up, because there have been a lot of swaps here, so I have high hopes now with the Snoopy and, not Gino, rather, long lane there.
And I think that's a fair point. Don't forget, by the way, that Snoopy and Gino played together on Armada last year. That's the team that upset then rival the #1 seed, so they at least have some synergy ready to go. In fact, it's 4 out of 5 members of that old Armada roster now playing for E United. Hurriwind, the only one there. Of course, we have to talk Baskin now in that solo lane. Look, it's a meme, it's Baskin, blah, blah, blah. But the reality of the situation is that he is a leader. He is the guy who's going to dictate the way he wants to play the game. And he's been on top teams basically his entire career. Do you think it's enough, Dave, to move E United from the bottom?
Yes, and I think that this is sort of that middle change where the most impactful is maybe Gino. Snoopy moving over to Hunter is sort of on the lower end of impactful. But I think right in the middle, at least as far as, maybe mechanical play here out of the solo lane goes, I think, and I think Hurriwind really hit the nail on the head with this one. Obviously, him and the rest of the boys were the ones who made the change. I think it's kind of that intangible behind-the-scenes stuff that really is going to make this change more impactful for this E United team, the in-game leadership, and maybe it will be tangible when you see how the play shifts. I think that Baskin brings, well, I guess a pun, more variety maybe out of that play style, the ability to drive some of these games, whether it's in-game leadership, out-of-game leadership, but I do think this is an impactful change and a good one for United.
Finch, I think people might be forgetting that when Baskin subbed in for solo last year for Splice, he was the best solo laner in the league, bar none, statistically. Now, they only played against the bottom end last year, but during that stretch, he was still a dominant force in that solo lane. Do you think that it's fair to expect him to do that same sort of performance for E United?
I do, and I know that the solo lane is stacked, right? I don't think there's a bad solo laner out there, even on the worst team that's struggling, and I guess that was E United. And I gotta make sure I preface this by saying Baskin's the best player. Adding him to your team makes you better. Undoubtedly, they will improve with Baskin on there. But I do think that this is one of the smaller changes they made, at least in terms of on-the-field performance. Baskin is certainly strong, but Variety played well. I think that he was one of the few things that worked for you, this E United squad. So it certainly was a head-scratcher for me that Variety ended up getting dropped from this squad, but that's why we had to talk to Hurriwind, right? They felt they needed someone to provide a bit of a leadership role from the front line in particular, and I think Baskin is someone that can do that if he's locked in and motivated and ready to play. I think that the only way he's going to come back to the SPL is if that is the case. Baskin locked in, ready to play, ready to be a leader, means that E United is going to be looking really good. The guy's the best player that we've seen in a long, long time, the best player that's out there right now, and he's on E United.
Can't wait to watch this team in action, man. Cannot wait. And we can't wait to see what Variety's going to do for Renegades either. You mentioned a bit of a head-scratcher for maybe United to drop him, but Renegades are the ones who benefit. Had a chance to talk to their coach, Ro, on what led them to make the choice to switch from Solo Patrol to Variety. Take a look. We've got Ro, the coach of Renegades, with us now. And Ro, Kind of a surprising roster move, I think, to a lot of people, because obviously the whole benching of SOT happens, comes back. You guys look really good against two very difficult teams. What led you to make the decision to move on from Solo or Troll?
I mean, it was a long process. We did have a really good weekend against Ghost and SSG, but we were in talks before that about possibly making a change. Obviously, we had the benching a couple weeks prior. That was kind of just setting a fire under him to try to wake him up a little bit and get some of those problems fixed, including just being a mental break. That worked out, didn't work out. I think it helped in some ways and was negative in other ways as well. I know a lot of people were critics of it, which is fair. I don't regret the decision at all, even though it did get us a loss against their Bay, which hurt. He come back into the Ghost and SSG set with like a new motivation. And we ended up winning against Ghost 2-0. Decent showing against SSG as well. I think we had a bit of draft fault there as well. So I think with a better drafting, we maybe would have won that set too. So wouldn't put that on him at all. I think he didn't have a third game that he was happy with, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, there was a lot of problems behind the scenes. Obviously, even though he had a good showing and he kind of rekindled his motivations, which was one of our earlier problems during the benching phase, they were kind of the wrong motivations. Not selfish, but just very self-centered in that he had a lot of motivation to win and a lot of motivation to prove himself, but didn't feel like he had a lot of motivation to work with the team. And coming into Worlds, that was very, very essential. Just over the year, mostly after MSI and into Phase 2, there was a lot of distrust between him and the teammates, or some of the teammates. A lot of disagreements that it just, I don't know, it kind of submerged into this, like, it just snowballed out of control, really, and you can't come back from some of those things, even though we talked about it and worked on it for weeks at a time. Eventually, we got towards roster lock and felt like we had to make a decision after a couple weeks of bad scrims, despite the good SPL showings. We couldn't just have bad practice and then hope for the best come SPL day, hope everybody would turn up on the day like they did. It just doesn't work that way coming into a big tournament like Worlds, and when our eyes are on placements and then Worlds, you can't really just put the trust in that. Hopefully it happens. Hopefully we win on the day, because that's not good odds.
I think that makes a ton of sense, and it's not every day that a world-class solo laner kind of gets opened up right on time.
That's true.
You guys
That's true.
picking up variety, a little bit of serendipity almost. Describe the process of, you know, trying him out, seeing what your options were, all that kind of stuff. How did you arrive on picking up Harry?
So even before Harry was available, we had a couple options in mind that we were talking about. We did some trials as well. It was eventually between our three options, which was I'll just say Jacob, between Jacob, another person, and Harry, since he had just become available. Through trials and obviously through our scrims with Sot as well, we decided that we definitely did want to change, so we narrowed it down to the two options that we had of the two players, and eventually chose variety. It was a very hard decision. I think the two options we had were a big upgrade for the team, not necessarily over Sot as a player, because I just want to say that Sot is a very, very good player, if not one of the best mechanically skilled players in the game right now. And with the right motivations, I think he could be one of the best, but he needs a team that he can work with. And unfortunately, this year, he had too many disagreements with our team, and it wasn't the team for him. I think we'll see him again. Maybe not this year, but next year for sure as well. But arriving on Harry was a pretty easy decision. He just kind of fit the mold that we were looking for as well. He's not a person I have to worry about going into Worlds. I don't have to worry about his play in his lane at all. But even if I did, he's very coachable. He had this leadership that he apparently lacked a bit on United, but he was able to step it up for us. And I think it's just a team environment kind of thing, and he meshes well with our players. I think obviously more than he might have meshed with his other players. So the reasons he was removed from United weren't really relevant to us, so that was a positive, or at least it took away the negative from over there. And then yeah, just being able to trust him. He was like, it came down to good team play, like good communication, and good like individual play, lane matchups, knowledge, mechanical skill, all of that. He kind of just checked all the boxes, even though some other applicants checked a lot of the boxes, not as many as Harry. It's hard not to pick up Harry when you look at, let's say you look at Season 3, it's like we want that coming into Worlds. You gotta take that, and with some of the confidence that he brought to comms, that was a big boon for us as well, so we're happy to have him.
I think he's going to be a great fit for you guys. Can't wait to see how well he works out over there for the short lane. Good luck, Ro, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys play.
Appreciate it.
So variety now on Renegades. Fellas, how important is it for this team? Clearly, based on what Ro was saying, the change from Solar Patrol vastly influenced by the stuff behind the scenes. Finch, do you think that this swap can kind of cleanse the palate and bring Renegades back into a good space?
I think so, because the problem for Renegades really never was mechanical, right? This is a team that a lot of the times would be ahead going into the 20, 21-minute mark. You've got a bunch of talent on that roster, too. So I think that if he is going to come in and be a leader, refresh that mental, then that's going to be huge for this Renegades roster. I already thought they were a little bit better than their record said. You add on someone like Variety, who almost got an MVP in a losing World's Finals effort, then yeah, I think your team's going to be looking better.
Dave, your thoughts?
Yeah, echoing again a lot of what Finch said, I do think these are sort of harder changes to immediately react upon, since we're not super privy to a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on that Ro, of course, brought up there. But I do think if it's just a net increase in the sort of mental game, the team cohesivity department, I think that's always going to be a good thing, and that's going to be something that allows the Renegades to be better. It's a very small side point, but I do wonder how this changes some game plans. I think we saw Fenrir out of the solo lane. The Susano just frankly didn't work the last time we saw SOT play it. But they were willing to try out some interesting comps built around that solo lane, which is not something we've necessarily seen Variety do. I mean, we haven't seen anyone do Fenrir or Susano out of the solo lane. I wonder if that changes up drafts a little bit. But by and large, net change if the mentality is really what the key is here, and I think it was.
I think it's a good point for sure, and that's another reason to watch Waiting Room. Not only do you get up-to-the-minute info, but you learn new words like cohesivity or whatever the hell you said.
What's the right
it wasn't
word?
a word. That is not a word. No.
Cohesion. Cohesion.
Oh, yeah, that's a word. Hey, chat is nice and cohesive with their votes. At least 80% of them, they feel like E United is going to be the team that benefits the most from these roster changes, which just makes sense. I mean, Renegades had seen some success. E United had not. They were 0-10. So it makes sense that they would be the ones to get a little bit ahead. Speaking of looking ahead, now I'm speaking of looking ahead. Let's look ahead at week number 8, shall we? It's going to be a sick week of SPL, man. I cannot wait. The bye week got me all riled up. Ooh. I missed the SPL, and we get to kick it off with Radiance versus Obey Alliance. Radiance returning to play after they have not been able to play the last 2 weeks, so that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And then we don't have to wait long for our first look at New E United. There's probably a pun in there somewhere, but don't let us miss the headline. Ghost SSG is our first game tomorrow. The top 2 seeds in the SPL. SSG absolutely killing it right now. Ghost has been on a bit of a downturn. This is going to be a great week for the SPL. I want to talk about Ghost SSG though, Finch. What are you looking at in this matchup? Because I think this is going to be one of the closest ones yet.
I think that the mid is going to be huge for this matchup. I agree that Ghost have been looking a little bit weaker lately, and I think if they make sure Captain Twig is on form, it can go toe-to-toe up against Dardes, and that's going to be huge for him. How often do SSG win their games through that right side of the map, through mid, jungle, and solo together? We know that Fine OK is going to be there. We know that Sam's going to be there. Twig has looked great at the beginning, but I think he struggled the last couple of weeks. If he shows up and that 3v3 is looking good, Ghost absolutely have a chance to run away with this one.
Dave, last time we saw these two teams go off against each other, Ghost was the one who handed Space Station their only loss of phase number 2. Should that give Space Station fans some concern going into this matchup?
I don't think so. I think that SSG are just too hot right now. They're on an absolute tear, and it's going to be very difficult to slow them down. They did go 3 games up against the Renegades, but this team has not lost since they lost to Ghost earlier on in the phase. That's their only loss so far here in phase 2 of the SPL. I don't think there needs to be a high level of concern from SSG. That said, I think this is like a 55-45 matchup in my eyes, maybe a little lean towards SSG. I mean, really hard, I think, to decide which way it's going to go. Depends, I think, more on what Ghost we get than maybe what SSG we get, because we've seen SSG up at the top. So I don't think concern is in the cards for the SSG fans just yet, but it's going to be a fun one nonetheless.
This might be the hardest week to predict we've ever had, with lots of roster changes, a lot of very close matchups. Radiance, we don't know how rusty they are going to be. This one is going to mess with the percentages a little bit, Finch, and that might be exactly what I've been waiting for to catch up to you at the very top. And maybe Mifflin can finally surpass Community, though. Let's be honest, I doubt that one. Let's take a look at what our actual predictions are for this week. Mifflin sticking with Obey, as per usual. Finch, you went E
Yep.
United today against Sanguine.
Man.
Yep. I'm not going to make a whole lot of money betting against Baskin, I don't think. Even though they're new, coming in fresh, I think I want to see United come out and show us what they're capable of with this new roster.
I think it's a great pick, man. And honestly, I hovered on the button, and then I
Yeah,
picked
I
Sanguine.
did
But
too.
we'll see
I
if
couldn't-
you're right. We'll see if you are right. Thanks so much for watching SPL Waiting Room, everyone. And let's get right into the action. Week 8 of the SPL starting right now.